I've done two things to refine the cuts and get a proper interior. One of them was to change a little bit the rationale in which I was cutting the wings. So remember I had something like 0.2 millimeters here, but in fact that's computation intensive in order to compute those points and to see the cuts and everything like that. So I thought it was easier to do that this other way in a way, because the cut is clearer and everything, and so I've changed that for all the profiles, and in fact I will come back on this and say here that's global sheet tolerance. Okay, okay, and now I will say close, and I will let the system recompute everything. Okay, and as you can see, so there are two guys here. As you can see, I still have a very nice clear cut here. It's easier to control. Now, of course, I have a little gap here, but that's okay. And so that's the first thing that I've done. The second thing that I've done is that I will have to explain to you this kind of little here things here, which are strengtheners. So let's talk about those strengtheners that you can see here. In fact, when you build such shapes like that and you want to print them, 0.7 millimeter of width is not very wide, and I could increase, of course, I would say the resin thickness in a way, but I do not like that. First, that's too much matter. Second, it's heavier and everything like that, so I do not like that. But in fact, also sometimes you will see that the shapes, after you cure them and you let them dry or you play with them and everything like that, they kind of changed a little bit. If you've looked at the videos of my runner, you've seen it. So the idea is to use, I would say, inside sections that would hold the parts together, hold the piece together, and avoid any deformation and everything like that. The second thing is that before also, when you have, for example, two halves of fuselage and you want to glue them together, we are using super glue, and that means that you need to go, right at the correct place at the beginning, because if not, the glue will be already sticking. So the idea is, before I was using things that you can see in plastic models, such as, two little, indentations here with one in the middle coming from the other side and everything like that. So that's not symmetric, so it's a little bit more complex, I would say, to engineer. But what if you had something that would allow like a central part here to come into things in order to join the left and the right sections? In fact, that's the thing that I've defined here. So how does that work? So very easy. I have one thing which is something like that. Which is this kind of 8. If you go to the full picture and not simply the half picture, so it's octagon. It's octagon based. Okay, so it's very easy to see that it's an octagon based. You can see here that there is a little difference, which is half the tolerance. Because I want to take into account the fact that the resin may, I would say, expand a little bit, and this is why I add that. So how does that work? Very easy. You basically do that the length of the model, and then after that, what you're doing is that you have some cut profiles that you have here, okay, that you can play with and you can place wherever you want. But for example, if I want this one to be at 130, I put a close here, and what it means is that if you let the system recompute, of course, what it means is that here you can see that my strengthener has gone over there. So how does that work? It's very easy. So perhaps I will put it a little bit less far, like 100, just for fun. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so how do you create those shapes? That's very easy. You are doing, I would say, the extrude on one side, the extrude on the other side, which give you this external strengthener here, of course. Okay, and now you are using the trick, which is to cut the cut. What does it mean? That means that before I had this fuselage that I'm using in order to carve out the interior of my stuff. In fact, this thing I'm cutting it with that profile. I'm cutting the cut. So what does it mean? It means that if I cut the cut, okay, I have a cut that will be like that. But that cut, when I do the actual cut, of course, it will leave the cuts that I cutted from my cuts. Very easy to understand, right? And the good thing is that you can do that also with, the back wing interior and the front wing interior and the interior, which means that at the end of the day, you have these things that are completely versatile and whatever. You want three, you can have three. You want two for the front half, two for the second half, you can do those. So and if you do not want, for example, this one to bother you while you are tuning the cuts and everything like that, it's very easy. You put that, for example, at 10, and you put that, for example, at minus 20. Okay. And now, of course, you just have one. Just have one, and you can still on working and everything like that. So now that we have all that out of the way, we have really, this one piece corresponding to our, I would say, full model. Now it's time to begin to cut it into parts. So the first slice that we will do is the slice corresponding to the back aileron. In fact, you can see that it was a little bit difficult for me to design the parts as they will be at the end, because you can see here that there is a kind of, continuation of this Karman here, okay? But in fact, the aileron axis is kind of going through that. So we need a way to replicate that. So it's very easy. How do we do that? Well, in fact, I've prepared all my slices, okay? So it's going to be pretty easy. So the first thing that I need to do is to have to know how I will cut, I would say, that aileron here. And in fact, I'm using a semicircular kind of stuff. What's important is that this thing is tuned, this dimension is tuned in order to make sure that I am here at the level of this drawing here, as you can see. Of course, I'm using always the tolerance, as the little thing, because I will remove the matter that is between these things here. So that's the first profile that I need. Okay, and then I'm using an extrusion of that. Now, the interest of the extrusion is the direction. As you can see here, I'm using custom direction, and I'm tuning it. Like, for example, if you take that profile here and you try to do An extrusion, of course, in the custom direction, usually I'm starting from a -1 because I know that I will go into that direction, okay? On 10 millimeter, that should give me something like that, which is this thing here, okay? You don't see it, but it's here, okay? I think that the slicer is, nah, okay? So now you should begin to see it, okay? So of course 10 millimeter is not enough. Let's put like 50 millimeters. So this is why you were not looking at it very well. And now of course you can see that it's not into the correct direction. So in fact I'm tuning the direction here using the custom direction. So I know that I should go perhaps a little bit higher than that. So in terms of Z, 0.1 or something like that. Yes, yes, it's you cannot use the numerical pad on my laptop on that because you need to use commas. Okay, and now of course you can see that this is way too much. Okay, and little by little you tune the direction of that. Even if you want, to use something in the Y stuff, you can use the Y in order to control the direction in the Y stuff. And this is exactly what I've done in order to control the head point of my slicer in a way, which is this thing. Now, once I have that, I've used that profile here in order to have a closure. So what is that closure? Whoops, sorry. That closure is something which is on this profile here, of course. I will remove my views. I have too many views here. I thought it was interesting, but side view, okay. My closer, it's the same thing, but it closes, I would say, leaving the hole here. And it's important to leave that hole because then after that, the last part is to have an axis. Okay, so the axis that again I will extrude into the same direction that will give me that. So at the end of the day, I have a slicer that is something like that. So at the beginning it's a hole, then there is a wall a little bit at the end, and then there is the room for the axle in a way. So let's try it. Normally, if everything goes fine, when I'm using those kind of slice, I should have three parts at the end, the whole fuselage, the aileron, and I would say the little skin between both. So I will take that, and I will use slice apart. Ta-da! We have an exploded slice, okay? Slice 0 is my fuselage. Slice 1 is the part in between. Slice 2 is my aileron. Isn't that nice? Okay, so I'm good with that. Okay, now I can go on. So I take this slice 0 here, okay, and I will do exactly the same thing in order to have my aileron number 2. Same thing here, it's much easier because there is no axle visible and everything like that. So I take that, which is my slice 0. I take my slicer 2 and I slice. Okay, again 3 parts if everything goes fine. My fuselage, my skin in between, and my aileron. Okay, don't want to. I have this. Now let's continue. So I have my fuselage. What are the third slicer that I want to do? It's the one that will separate the front fuselage and the back fuselage. I could keep everything in one piece, But in order to, let's say, make sure that I can print that, and even when I will scale it, you know, at 150 to make it at 32 scale model, I want to make sure that I have that, so it's good to have smaller pieces. I wanted also to cut somehow this. Usually I'm doing my fuselage in 3 sections, you know, but here because of this part here and whatever, it's not very easy to cut all that, so I've kept it. So how did I do that slicer? It's easy. I took my original, vision that I had in order to be able to slice, and then again, same thing. I have my tolerance in between here. That's very important to keep the tolerance. And that's my slicer again. So here I will take my slice 1, and I will take my slicer 3, and I slice. Now you think that nothing has happened, but in fact, as usual, I have my little middle here, I have my front, my back, and I have my front. And all that is, I would say, different. And the front is the only one with a with a strengthener in a way, but that's okay. It's just for fun for now. So then what? So okay, I have my fuselage. Same thing for the cockpit slicer. So in fact, I'm looking at how I've done that. It's again very easy. I took the thing that I've used in order to do my cut, and I've drawn like a tolerance, expansion on top of it. Okay, so that's pretty easy. And that gives me that slicer. So okay, it's really a refinement because that's half of the tolerance that I'm cutting from this piece. But again, that's what it takes. And then I take my slicer 2 with my cockpit slicer and I slice. Only 2 parts there, normally. Exploded slice, yes. And this is this one and this one. And this one is my main part. And this is how I can, do the parts. Really, at that point, I'm ready to do a first test print in order to see if things are going well in terms of printing, and then also in terms of, let's say, putting things together in a way. So when I see that, and yes, also my slice 2 here, it's very likely that my slicer 2, I will do the symmetric of the this in order to printing into one piece in a way. So that means that my strengthener, I don't need them here. I need them, I would say, in the fuselage themselves. So in fact, I will tune that. Okay, I will tune that. So I will ask for the side view here. Okay, because there is a window here, so I do not put the strengthener here, for example. So what I will take is that I will take my strengtheners, which are somewhere. I need to find them back. Yes, I will find them going down the hierarchy. Back wing, interior mid-hole, this. I find my strengtheners, and I find my profiles. Oof. Okay. Yes, not the extrude. Okay. So, reference, I will put that here. Okay. And then also reference, I will put that, oops. So I will put that just before the window. Okay. So like here, it's going to be 54. And here, it's going to be somewhere around here, 110. Okay. And well, in fact, I do not need to be 54. I can be like 50. Okay. In order to have enough distance between the two strengtheners to strengthen, to put them in a way. I think I did not explain to you how I will put those two strengtheners together. Okay. Anyway, the left and the right part. So as you can see, I modified that. I have added a lot of operations after that, you know, the slices and everything like that. And guess what? It's not working the first time. The shape is invalid. What is that? Okay. Yeah, just 10 millimeters made the difference in a way. Slice 3. Yes, it's working well. It's there. Okay. So now I have my parts that I can use. Okay, and as you can see, I mean that's going right in the middle of the thing. So it's yeah, you have to be a little bit careful, but most of the time that will work, or you can find a way that it will work. So this is, I would say, the end. Now, of course, that means that if I'm going now to this slice 3, in fact, I will save my work, okay, because that's I've put a lot of effort into that, so it's good to save it, okay, clear. And I will take that slice 3, I will take a clone of it, slice 3, clone it, on that clone, I will change here the thing with 1. That will take some time because it's a pretty complex shape, okay? So do not expect that to go very smoothly. I will stop the recording here, and it may take 1 minute or so in order to get the output of that. So it took 3 minutes, and it's not completely perfect. It seems that there is a problem here, so I will see at the export what does it mean. Okay, yes, I thought I've done. Okay, I'm selecting that. I'm doing an export. So the file is something like a 100K or something like that. So I will test it right away just to see if that worked or not. Perhaps I will need to remove to reduce a little bit the degrees, or to make it a little bit bigger between 6.4 and 1. Okay, so here it is. Structural error, so it's not very good, but that's okay. Normally it should be printable. Okay, fully repaired. Hey, look at that. Okay, and guess what? Yeah, well, yeah, it's not very good there. So let's see if we can put it all together. So usually I will print it somewhere here, and then here, and then something like that. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, our ailerons are pretty good. The shape is not too bad. And here, yeah, it's not really. So, will that fly? Not sure. I will see. What does it mean? What does it mean if I do a prepare to look at, So all that is all good. Yes, all that is good. And just to see if I do not have too much, resin at one point. Ooh, yeah, that's a lot of resin at that point here. Perhaps a little bit too much. Okay, the hole. Oh no, it seems to be okay. Yeah, there are some little, okay. And you can see here also that the hole is okay, is continuing. Okay, there will be a little, I would say, pocket of resin here. Okay, but in the wing, it's going to be difficult to stop it all. And then I have the final hole here, which is the final hole here. So it's not too bad. Okay, so yeah, not sure what to do with this thing here yet. I will see. But if I support that, and then if I'm doing a symmetry of that, I should be able to put that together. If, of course, I print my little things that I didn't explain to you, the strengthener holder. Okay, so that means that here, if I do a file export, I don't need a fastener holder. Yes. Import. Okay, that's this thing, and these things come here. Okay. In order to, I would say, make sure that the left and the right fuselage are at the correct position. So in fact, you glue it on the left side, for example, and then when you come the two pieces together, normally it should direct in the correct position. And yeah, this is why I should not have a straight line here. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, well, I think that's it for this session. Not sure if I can have something a little bit smoother. Now, of course, if I had to, I would say, have smaller pieces, that would be easier. But for now, that's what I wanted to share with you. So I was a little bit surprised by this vision that we had here about the fact that it was really kind of strange in that situation here. And in fact, it's true that if you look here, yes, the system has been corrected, but in fact, here, as you can see, there is a kind of null portion. So it's not very likely that that's going to be very well for the print. So to me, the only difference was this degree that I was using. So in fact, I generated another clone Okay, and here I'm playing with that thing here. So here, for example, you know that I was going down to 1 degree. If I'm at 3.5, that gives that. If I go to 4, if I go to 4, then that goes that. Yeah, I need to go down, sorry. If I go to 3, then you begin to see some problems here, okay? And in fact, yes, if with the common, as you can see, yes, the fact that I'm smoothing, I would say the tessellation using triangles is changing the shape. So, of course, that will not fly here, okay? So, I think that this means that my part here is too big for this to run. So, I will have to find a way to cut that out, okay? Again. So I have to think a little bit how I want to do that. I have several options. I can cut here, of course. I can cut along the Karman here, or I can cut along the line here. So I do not like to cut here because I would like to have the strengtheners in order to do that. So that leaves me to try to cut here. But then after that, I will have to find a way in order to make sure that I can put back the wing in the proper position. So that's a little bit annoying again. Okay, I will stop here and next to come.